Sir, we got a call about a suspicious person. Can you tell me what you're doing here?
I'm just working in my garden. I live here.
You live here, huh? Okay, sure. Can I see some ID?
Yeah, of course. Here.
This could be fake. Anyone can print these things.
That's a federal credential. I work for the government.
Sir, you're being evasive. Turn around. Hands behind your back.
This is my house. My daughter's
You can't
inside.
just-
Officer Jenkins had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 48 hours, his badge would be taken away. His body camera footage would be viewed over 20 million times, and the FBI would launch a federal investigation into his entire department. The suspicious person he just handcuffed in a front yard, Marcus Williams, director of the FBI's Criminal Investigation Division, one of the most powerful law enforcement officials in the entire country. Williams had spent 22 years investigating organized crime, terrorism, and police misconduct, and his teenage daughter's iPhone was recording everything from the living room window. Before I continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong somewhere, even though you had every right to be there? Drop your answer in the comments. But Officer Jenkins had no idea who he was putting handcuffs on. Marcus Anthony Williams was 49 years old. He'd been the director of the FBI's Criminal Investigation Division since 2022. That meant he oversaw more than 3,000 agents across 56 field offices. Williams started as a field agent in Chicago back in 1998. He worked his way up over 22 years. He became a supervisor, then an assistant director. He had a master's degree in criminal justice from Georgetown University. He'd led investigations into organized crime and public corruption. He'd even investigated civil rights violations by police officers. He'd testified before Congress. He'd briefed presidents. He had top-secret security clearance. Law enforcement officers across the country knew his face from conferences. Williams had moved to his suburban Maryland neighborhood 3 years ago. He lived with his wife, who was a pediatric surgeon, and their 2 teenage children. His neighbors knew him as quiet and private. He loved working in his garden on weekends. On this Saturday afternoon in late January 2026, the doctor was just trying to enjoy a rare day off. He was pruning rose bushes in the front yard of the home he'd saved 15 years to buy. Now here's what happened next. Officer Derek Jenkins had a different kind of reputation in the Montgomery County Police Department. Derek Jenkins was 31 years old. He'd been with the department for 6 years. He was still just a patrol officer. He'd never been promoted beyond his starting rank. And there was a reason for that. 7 internal complaints in 6 years. 5 of those complaints involved black residents. Not one resulted in discipline beyond a written warning. Let me break down his pattern. In 2021, he stopped a black doctor during a traffic stop. He detained the man for 45 minutes over an air freshener hanging from the mirror. The dashcam caught Jenkins saying, "Sure you can afford this car." In 2023, he confronted a black teenager outside a community center. He accused the kid of trespassing at a facility his family had a membership to. In 2024, he questioned a black woman jogging through what he called an expensive neighborhood. He asked for her ID to prove she lived there. His partner that day, Officer Reynolds, had 3 complaints himself. 2 were for racial profiling. The third officer with them was a rookie who stayed quiet. He would later become a key witness. Jenkins' colleagues had a nickname for him. They called him Probable Cause. It was sarcastic. It meant he always came up with weak reasons to stop people. His supervisor had flagged him twice for bias training. Jenkins never completed it. But this Saturday afternoon, Jenkins was about to profile someone who had the power to make sure it was the last time. Let me know in the comments what you think should happen to officers with this kind of record. It was Saturday, January 25, 2026. The time was 2:47 in the afternoon. The location was a quiet suburban street in Silver Spring, Maryland. The neighborhood had tree-lined streets and homes worth between $800,000 and $1.2 million. It was a mix of professionals, doctors, lawyers, federal employees. The neighborhood was 73% white. Williams was one of only 4 black homeowners on the entire block. It was an unusually warm winter afternoon. The temperature was 58 degrees. Children were playing basketball 3 houses down. You could hear lawnmowers and leaf blowers. Williams was dressed casual. He wore a Howard University sweatshirt, jeans, and gardening gloves. At 2:34 p.m., his neighbor Karen Hendricks dialed 911. She was 72 years old. She lived across the street. She reported a suspicious black male in her neighbor's yard. She said he didn't belong there. The dispatcher asked if he lived there. Hendricks said, "I've never seen him before." That was a lie. Williams had lived there for 3 years. 2 police cars pulled up at 2:47 p.m. Jenkins got out first. His hand was near his gun. Reynolds circled around to the side yard, cutting off any escape route. The rookie officer stayed by the cars. Jenkins walked up with an aggressive tone. Williams stood up. He took off his gloves. He looked confused but stayed cooperative. Neighbors started watching from their windows. If stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. That's when everything changed. Williams explained calmly that he was the homeowner. Jenkins said, "Can you prove that? Anyone can say they live somewhere." Williams offered to show his mortgage documents inside. Jenkins said, "I'm not letting you go inside to get something. Stay right here." Williams pulled out his wallet. He showed his driver's license with his address on it. Jenkins looked at it. He handed it to Reynolds. "Could be fake," Jenkins said. Williams stayed calm. "That's a state-issued ID. My address is right there." Reynolds looked at it. "Addresses can be faked. You have anything else?" Williams then showed his FBI credentials and badge. Jenkins looked at them like they were fake. "FBI, huh? This looks like something from Amazon." Williams kept his voice steady. "That's an official federal badge. You can verify it." Jenkins shook his head. "Anyone can buy a badge online. You'd be surprised what people try." Williams tried again. "Call your supervisor. Call the FBI field office. Can give you a direct number." Jenkins got defensive. "Why would I need to do that? You getting defensive?" Williams replied, "I'm not being defensive. I'm trying to verify who I am." Reynolds jumped in. "Seems like you're avoiding our questions. Why so nervous?" Then Jenkins made his move. "Sir, turn around. Put your hands behind your back." Williams' voice got tighter. "Officer, you're about to make a serious mistake." Jenkins got aggressive. "Is that a threat? Are you threatening a police officer?" Williams stayed firm. "It's not a threat. I'm telling you I'm a federal agent standing in my own yard." That's when neighbor Tim Rodriguez walked over. "Hey, he does live here. I've seen him for years." Jenkins turned on him. "Sir, step back or you'll be detained too." Williams' daughter Alicia appeared in the front window. She held up her phone. She was recording. Jenkins noticed. "Tell her to put the phone down." Williams said, "She has every right to record this. This is her home." Jenkins grabbed Williams' arm. He spun him around. Reynolds pulled out handcuffs. Williams didn't fight back, but his voice got louder. "This is unlawful. You have no reason to detain me." Jenkins said, "You're being detained for suspicious activity and failure to comply." The metal cuffs clicked shut. Alicia started screaming from the window. "Dad, are they arresting you?" 10 minutes into this encounter, and 3 trained officers had ignored every piece of proof that Williams belonged there. Type justice in the comments if you think this was wrong. At 2:56 p.m., Sergeant David Morrison pulled up. He was responding to a backup request. Morrison got out of his car. He saw Williams standing there in handcuffs. He froze. His face went pale. He walked over to Jenkins. He whispered, "You know who that is?" Jenkins said, "Some guy claiming to be FBI." Morrison's voice dropped. "That's Director Marcus Williams from the Criminal Investigation Division." Jenkins' face went white. "What?" Morrison walked straight to Williams. He took the handcuffs off immediately. "Sir, I am so sorry. This is a terrible mistake." Then the witnesses started speaking up. Tim Rodriguez spoke first. He was a neighbor and an accountant. "I walked over to tell them he lived here. The officer threatened to arrest me too. Marcus has lived here for 3 years. He coaches basketball with my son." Alicia Williams was still recording from inside. She gave her statement later. "I recorded everything." He didn't believe his badge. They didn't believe his ID. They didn't care that this was his house. I was scared they were going to hurt my dad. Janet Kim lived next door. She was a retired teacher. I saw the whole thing from my porch. That officer was aggressive from the start. Marcus was calm and polite. It didn't matter. I've lived here 30 years. I've never seen police handcuff someone for gardening in their own yard. The evidence was overwhelming. All 3 officers had body cameras running. That was department policy. Alicia had 8 minutes of video on her iPhone. Williams' own doorbell camera captured the full thing with audio. The 911 call from Hendricks was recorded. It would later show she lied. The patrol car dashcams captured the officer's arrival. Morrison made a call to his watch commander right away. The watch commander ordered all officers to stay on scene. Internal Affairs was called within 20 minutes. Williams himself contacted the FBI's inspection division after he was released. The Montgomery County Police Chief showed up within 45 minutes. Jenkins tried to explain himself. "Sir, we were responding to a call about suspicious activity." Williams rubbed his wrists where the cuffs had been. "Suspicious activity? In my own yard, on my own property." Jenkins kept going. "We didn't know. Your credentials didn't look real." Williams cut him off. "My credentials are standard federal issue. You chose not to believe them." Reynolds tried to help. "We were just being cautious." Williams stopped him. "Cautious about what? A man gardening in his own yard." Jenkins tried one more time. "If we made a mistake, we apologize, but..." Williams didn't let him finish. "There's no but. You handcuffed a federal agent without cause, in front of his daughter." Morrison told Jenkins and Reynolds to stop talking. "Both of you return to your vehicles, now." Reynolds asked, "Are we being suspended?" Morrison's voice was hard. "That's not my decision, but you need to leave now." By now, Officer Jenkins understood how badly he messed up, but the body camera footage was already stored on department servers. Alicia's video was already uploading to the cloud, and the doctor was standing on his own front lawn, deciding whether this would become a national case. Comment below if you think these officers should have been fired on the spot. Police Chief Rebecca Torres arrived at 3:32 p.m. That was 46 minutes after the incident started. She was a 15-year veteran. She was the first Latina police chief in Montgomery County. She was known for pushing reform. She had zero tolerance for racial profiling. She brought Internal Affairs Captain Lewis Grant with her. Chief Torres pulled up a tablet right there on the street. She reviewed Jenkins' body camera footage on the spot. She interviewed Sergeant Morrison first. "Walk me through exactly what you saw when you arrived." She talked to neighbor Tim Rodriguez. She watched Alicia's cell phone video with Williams' permission. She pulled up the 911 call transcript on the department system. Then she laid out how Jenkins' story didn't match the facts. Jenkins claimed they responded to a call and the subject couldn't verify his identity. The body camera showed Williams immediately gave his driver's license. It matched the address. He showed federal credentials. He offered multiple ways to verify who he was. Jenkins dismissed all of it. Jenkins said the credentials looked fake and they needed to investigate further. But Williams' FBI badge and ID were real federal issue. Standard protocol was to call the FBI field office to verify. Williams offered to give them a direct number. Jenkins never tried to verify anything. Jenkins claimed Williams became hostile and uncooperative, so they had to detain him for safety. Both the body camera and Alicia's video showed the opposite. Williams stayed calm the whole time. His hands were visible. He never raised his voice until the handcuffs went on. Rodriguez backed up that Williams was cooperative the entire time. Chief Torres walked over to Jenkins and Reynolds. Her voice was ice cold. "You're both suspended without pay, effective immediately. Badge and service weapon, now." Jenkins tried to defend himself. "Chief, we were just doing our jobs." Torres cut him off. "Your job is to be professional and fair. You handcuffed a federal agent in his own yard because you didn't believe he could live there." Reynolds jumped in. "The call said suspicious person." Torres shut him down. "A man gardening is not suspicious. You had no reason to detain him. You ignored valid federal credentials. You dismissed a witness who said he lived there. This isn't a mistake. This is a pattern." Both officers were escorted away by Internal Affairs. The rookie officer was put on leave while they investigated. Karen Hendricks, the woman who made the 911 call, was interviewed by Internal Affairs that same day. She would be charged later. All body camera and dashcam footage was locked down as evidence. The FBI's inspection division was officially notified. Jenkins went through all the stages. First, he denied it. "This is an overreaction. We get calls like this all the time." Then he got angry. "So we're supposed to just believe everyone who says they live somewhere?" Then he got desperate. "Chief, please, I have a family. I can't afford to lose my job." Torres didn't back down. "You should have thought about that before you profiled a man in his own yard." Williams was visibly shaken. He kept rubbing his wrists. He was trying to comfort his daughter. Chief Torres walked over to him personally. "Director Williams, on behalf of this department, I am deeply sorry. This should never have happened." Williams looked at her. "Chief, with respect, apologies don't change what just happened. My daughter watched 3 officers treat her father like a criminal in his own yard. 7 neighbors had gathered by now. They were offering to give statements. They were angry about what they'd seen." Morrison looked relieved that leadership took fast action, but the damage was done. If you believe accountability matters, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. Because while Chief Torres was suspending officers on Williams' front lawn, his daughter Alicia was doing what every teenager does when something unbelievable happens. She was posting the video online. At 3:47 p.m., 1 hour after the incident, Alicia uploaded the 8-minute video to TikTok. Her caption read, "Police just handcuffed my dad, an FBI director, in our own yard for looking suspicious." By 4:15 p.m., the video hit 50,000 views. It started spreading to Twitter. By 5:00 p.m., it had 300,000 views across platforms. The hashtag FBI Director Handcuffed was trending locally. By 6:30 p.m., local DC news stations picked up the story. They were requesting interviews. By 8:00 p.m., the video had 2.1 million views. CNN ran it as breaking news. It had gone national. By midnight, the video had been viewed 8.7 million times across TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Here's how it broke down. TikTok had 4.2 million views, 890,000 likes, and 127,000 shares. On Twitter, it hit 2.8 million views. The hashtag was trending at number 2 nationally. Instagram had 1.1 million views through reposts. YouTube had 600,000 views from news coverage and re-uploads. Facebook had 340,000 shares in community groups. The comments were intense. One civil rights account wrote, "If this can happen to the director of the FBI in his own yard, imagine what happens to people without badges or cameras. This is the point." A retired judge commented, "I reviewed the body camera footage. There was no reason for detention. This is textbook racial profiling. Those officers should face charges." A legal group posted, "Williams showed a state ID with his address, federal credentials, and offered verification. A neighbor confirmed it. He was still hanged." This is what systemic racism looks like. A local resident wrote, "I live 4 blocks from here. I'm white. I garden in my front yard every week. I've never been questioned. I've never had police called on me. I've never feared this. That's privilege. That's the difference." Local news stations led their evening broadcast with the story. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and CBS all ran segments by 9 p.m. Cable news showed split screens of the body camera footage and Williams' official FBI photo. The Washington Post published an article by 10 p.m. with the headline, "FBI Director Handcuffed in Maryland Suburb, Raising Civil Rights Questions." The FBI released a statement at 7:15 p.m. It was short. "We are aware of the incident involving Director Williams. The matter is under review and we are working with local authorities." Montgomery County Police held a press conference at 8:30 p.m. Chief Torres confirmed the officers were suspended. She said the body camera footage raised serious concerns. She promised full transparency and accountability. Jenkins tried to do damage control. His attorney released a statement saying Jenkins followed standard protocol, but the video made that claim look ridiculous. Jenkins deleted his social media accounts as people flooded his profiles with criticism. Even the police union declined to defend him publicly. That almost never happens. 3 days later, on Tuesday morning, Karen Hendricks gave an interview to a local news station. She said she didn't see race. She was just concerned about property values. The interview lasted 6 minutes. By that evening, people had identified her. Her employer had been contacted. Her own life was about to fall apart. What do you think should happen to people who make false 911 calls like this? Let me know in the comments. Until you hear what happened next. On February 12, 2026, Marcus Williams filed a federal lawsuit. He hired a private civil rights attorney. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court in Maryland. It was based on a law called Section 1983. That law protects people from violations of their constitutional rights. The lawsuit named officers Jenkins and Reynolds. It also named the Montgomery County Police Department. The claims were serious. Unlawful detention without probable cause. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure, racial profiling and discriminatory policing, emotional distress and harm to his reputation. The Maryland State Attorney opened a criminal investigation into false imprisonment. The FBI's Inspection Division investigated civil rights violations under federal law. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened an investigation into the entire Montgomery County Police Department. They were looking for patterns of discrimination. During the legal discovery process, Jenkins' full record came out. His personnel file showed 7 complaints. 5 involved black residents. 0 were sustained or resulted in real discipline. The department's own data showed Jenkins stopped black drivers at 4.7 times the rate of white drivers. Then investigators found text messages. In 2024, Jenkins had texted Reynolds about a black resident. He wrote, "Another one who doesn't look like he belongs here," with an eye roll emoji. There were 47 pages of internal complaints. There were 12 witness statements. There were 73 minutes of video footage. The evidence was overwhelming. In August 2026, Montgomery County settled with Williams. The amount they paid, $850,000 in damages. They also paid $125,000 in attorney fees. The total payout was $975,000. Williams donated the entire settlement to civil rights organizations that focus on police accountability. But the money was just the start. Jenkins and Reynolds were permanently banned from working in law enforcement in Maryland. Their certifications were revoked. Jenkins was also banned from all federal facilities nationwide. He was designated a security risk. They can't work as security guards, court officers, or anything requiring law enforcement certification. Jenkins lost his job in July 2026. He was officially fired. He's now blacklisted from law enforcement nationally. According to public records, he now works in warehouse logistics. Reynolds resigned before he could be terminated. He moved to a different state. His career in law enforcement is over. The rookie officer who was there that day was suspended for 6 months without pay. He had to complete bias training. He was transferred to desk duty. Jenkins and Reynolds were charged with misdemeanor false imprisonment under Maryland law. They both took a plea deal. They were sentenced to 18 months of probation. They had to do 200 hours of community service. They had to complete mandatory bias training. During probation, they can't carry firearms. They have to report for random check-ins. Karen Hendricks was charged with filing a false police report. That's a misdemeanor. She was fined $5,000. She got 100 hours of community service. A restraining order was issued. She has to stay 500 yards away from the Williams family at all times. The Montgomery County Police Department entered a consent agreement with the Department of Justice. They were required to make changes. All officers have to complete bias training. Body cameras are now mandatory. They created an early warning system for officers with patterns of complaints. Chief Torres made a new policy. All suspicious person calls now get screened for racial bias. Dispatchers have to ask callers, what specific action makes you believe this is suspicious? They have to note if race is mentioned. Supervisors now review all suspicious person stops within 24 hours. Williams used his position to push the FBI to focus more on civil rights complaints involving racial profiling. The FBI increased investigation resources by 40%. Jenkins never issued a public apology. His attorney released a statement in September 2026. It said Jenkins accepts responsibility for errors in judgment, but maintains he didn't act with discriminatory intent. People called the statement tone-deaf and inadequate. Williams gave a public statement after the settlement in August. This was never about money. It was about accountability. It was about making sure what happened to me doesn't keep happening to people without resources or power. He continued, I've spent 22 years in law enforcement. I know most officers are honorable, but we can't excuse the ones who abuse their authority. That's not anti-police, that's pro-justice. But the story didn't end with money or suspensions. 2 months after the incident, the doctor did something that would change the national conversation. On March 28, 2026, 2 months after the incident, Marcus Williams testified before Congress. It was a House Judiciary Committee hearing. The topic was racial profiling and accountability in American law enforcement. Williams was invited to testify in his personal capacity, not as an FBI official. His words were powerful. I stood in handcuffs in my own front yard while my 16-year-old daughter watched from the window. She was terrified that the police were going to hurt her father. That image, her face pressed against the glass, phone shaking in her hand, will stay with me forever. He continued, I couldn't sleep for a week. Every time I went outside, I wondered if a neighbor was watching, if someone would call again, if this time the outcome would be worse. My daughter now has anxiety when she sees police cars. She tenses up. She reaches for her phone. That's the legacy of that 8-minute encounter. Then he spoke as a law enforcement professional. I've investigated civil rights violations for 2 decades. I've reviewed hundreds of cases just like mine. The difference? I had a badge. I had a platform. I had resources to fight back. But most people don't. They don't have federal credentials. They don't have attorneys. They don't have media attention or power to demand accountability. If this happened to me, a federal director with every advantage, what happens to the single mother who gets profiled in her apartment complex? What happens to the teenager walking home from school? What happens when there's no camera, no witness, no viral video? His message was clear. To every person who's been told they don't belong in a space they have every right to occupy, you're not imagining it. Your experience is valid. You have rights. You have dignity. You don't deserve to be treated as suspicious for existing somewhere. He ended with this. I don't want my daughter to inherit a world where she has to prove she belongs in her own yard. I will use every platform I have to make sure this kind of injustice becomes impossible. The hearing room was silent. This case had exposed something much bigger. This wasn't just one bad officer or one bad department. Studies show Black Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be stopped by police than white Americans. Black homeowners in mostly white neighborhoods are 3.7 times more likely to have police called on them for suspicious activity. In 2024, over 4,200 complaints of racial profiling were filed against police departments nationwide. Only 3% resulted in discipline. Between 2020 and 2025, at least 87 Black professionals, doctors, lawyers, and elected officials were detained or arrested in their own neighborhoods. If it happened to an FBI director, it can happen to anyone. That's the point people need to understand. So let me ask you three things. Do we really believe that showing a state ID, federal credentials, and having a neighbor vouch for you still isn't enough proof you live somewhere? Or do we just not believe it when the person is black? Do we want to live in a place where calling 911 on someone for gardening or jogging or sitting in their car has no consequences, where a phone call can be used as a weapon? Do we think it's acceptable that an FBI director with 22 years of service can be treated like a criminal in his own yard, while the officers who did it face probation and a career change but no jail time? Because if we don't fix the bias that makes a black man in a nice neighborhood look suspicious, if we don't hold people accountable for false calls that put lives at risk, if we don't demand more than probation when officers violate rights on camera, then we're just waiting for the next Karen Hendricks, the next Officer Jenkins, the next Marcus Williams, the next viral video. Except next time, the person being handcuffed might not have a badge. They might not have a daughter with a camera. They might not survive to tell their story. Comment below if you believe people who file false police reports that lead to unlawful detention should face real criminal charges, not just fines. If you think stories like this matter, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding better. This isn't just about one neighbor's phone call or one officer's handcuffs. It's about all of us and what we're willing to accept. See you in the next one.